from Mall of America have returned, and we're giving them away all summer long. You can stop by KFAN events or find the KFAN street team out and about and get yours. Redeem at Mall of America for exciting prizes and great deals. You can see our full event schedule at KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
A lot of texts I want to get to, as I expected. Bradshaw and Bryant, KFAN text line 64686. If you have some talkbacks, I'd love to get to a few of those as well. I know they've been coming in. iHeartRadio app, microphone icon, you've got 30 seconds. How do we fix it? Does it need fixing? What's the solution? Where's the middle ground? We're talking about the youth sports development issues, conundrums. Maybe it's a problem. I don't know. But it's definitely something that I think a lot of us think about, trying to find exactly the right sweet spot for the right kind of participation for our kids. I want to read a story here in a second that kind of talks about the differences between Europe and America, because, and the premise of the story is, I think part of the difficulties is we're never going to be able to be Europe just because of how vast our country is, how wide our country is, how different our country is than Europe, which is a million countries packed into a small geographic area, and a lot of people packed into small geographic areas where you can get places more easily. You can do a travel team more easily. Like, it's never going to be that simple. But I do think they have some good thoughts and some good ideas. My favorite text, Bradshaw and Bryant inbox, and I'm not going to profile, but I'm going to profile. It's probably from someone who's definitely gotten in a fight at like a 3-on-3 hockey game or something, or yelled at a coach on the other bench of a 7-year-old, lacrosse game. Then don't play. That's all it is. Don't play. Don't like it, don't play. If only it were that simple. Because when you have kids and they like sports, they want to play. And that, I think, that's the conundrum. I do honestly think most parents, as nightmarish as some of these parent stories that we hear, and we've covered them as they come, and I grew up, thankfully, with parents that had a pretty level head. Not everybody in my sphere, friends and family and people that we play with, not everybody, there's crazy parents, we've talked about it, that are unrealistic about what the goals are and what they should be and what the end game is. I think most parents, I will generalize this way, I think most parents just want their kids to have a good experience, to learn the lessons that sports are supposed to teach about teamwork, accountability, goal setting, dependability, all the cliches, being a better version of yourself, overcoming adversity. Those are the lessons that we all, I think, want for our kids. Those are the lessons I got out of them as I grew up playing. And depending on which newspaper you subscribe to, you could see how successful I was one way or the other. Take your pick. Star Tribune, Pioneer Press, whatever you want, okay? But it's not even about that. It's about what did you learn along the way. I think most parents have a pretty level head about that. And again, I don't have all the answers. I'm going into a lot of this stuff blind, especially when my kids play sports that I'm not necessarily familiar with. They didn't have lacrosse when I was growing up. I'm the only person from Edina that can't skate. I can't tell you which hockey program my kid's supposed to play for or which coaches are supposed to be good. I don't know. I'm winging it as we go. So I'm learning as we go as well. But we all, I think, just want positive experiences where they improve, they get better. And for me, it's how long can they possibly play? Because the ball stops bouncing for everybody at some point, whether you're a professional or you stopped in 8th grade. And what are the lessons that you learned? Did you fall in love with the sport? Can sports take you to places that you might not have been able to go had you not played them? That's why most of us, I think, are participating in. I don't have any untapped dreams. I'm not trying to live vicariously through. My race has been run, right? Again, depending on which paper you want to look at, you can see how well the race was run. But I know at the end of the race, everything that's written, every trophy that you win, most of them just get thrown away when you're 40 years old and your parents downsize. And they say, hey, can we get rid of your 12 and under basketball, tennis trophy? Can we get rid of that? Can we get rid of this trophy, that trophy? That's what happens to them. All these trophies and medals that we collect.
Sick brag.
Well, I'm just saying that's what happens to them. They sit in your room at your parents' house, and then your parents want to move, and you've got to go over and go through it, and you end up throwing them all away. Like, that's where it is. But what sustains all of that, are the memories, are the moments, are the experiences, are the lessons. That's, I think, what most of us are trying to get. So to just flippantly go, well, don't play. Like, in my opinion, there's no better place to learn life stuff than playing sports. Considering the cost of youth sports, Brian McCormick is the writer. He's a former coach somewhere. He reposted this today. He wrote it a couple of years ago, but he reposted it again today. Just about the differences between the United States and Europe and how they go about things. And I'll just read, I'm probably not going to read all of it, but I am going to read quite a bit of it here. It's been a while since I coached in or attended an AAU tournament. However, people bemoan the expense weekly on social media, despite club directors, coaches, and parents showing no trepidation to continue playing in the tournaments. In the early thousands, or aughts, I argued parents' purchasing power was the key to changing and improving youth basketball, and nothing has changed. Organizers will line up to host expensive tournaments as long as parents pay for them, rather than embracing more cost-effective, developmentally oriented alternatives such as playmakers leagues. A recent tweet criticized players for not playing hard and described the cost of a weekend tournament. $300 for team fees, $800 for hotels and food per weekend, $1,000 weekend pass to watch games, $1,000 in gas, $200 shoes and jersey. I cannot vouch for the accuracy, but the accuracy and actual costs are beside the point. People constantly argue for the United States to be more like Europe without supporting these arguments with exact ideas and plans, but the overall society structure and systems are too different to compare. The United States cannot copy and paste a European system because sociocultural constraints shape behavior in complexifying ways, as soccer coach and researcher Mark O'Sullivan wrote. Each player paid roughly 100 euros for the weekend when my Estonian youth team traveled. This covered all meals, transportation, the hotel, 5 games, and coaching expenses. We traveled from Estonia to Latvia, roughly 3 hours by bus. I think it's Riga, Latvia, and Klaipėda and Vilnius in Lithuania. That's not where Dan is. He's just in Chicago. 10-hour trips. Rarely did parents travel, but when they did, inside or outside of Estonia, there was no admission fee. Our van was a 16-passenger minibus for 12 players and 1 coach. Nobody complained about the lack of space compared to a school or charter bus used in the States. Players played their video games, watched movies, or slept. We stopped once or twice, usually just at a gas station, as European gas stations offer slightly better food alternatives than USA gas stations. Quick Trip taking strays. Have you not heard of Supermoms? Even my pro team in Czech stopped at gas stations for pre- and post-game meals for our 2 to 3 hour drives.
You ever had Casey's Pizza?
Exactly. Breakfast pizza, too.
Jeez.
The bus drove to Riga on Thursday, left us at the hotel, returned on Sunday to pick up the team at the gym after our last game. We walked from the hotel to our meals in the gym. We played in February and with a few feet of snow on the ground. Walking to the games was normal. We stayed roughly a mile from the gym on one trip and slightly closer on the other. We ate our meals at the cafe next to the gym. Every team had a scheduled meal time, as the cafe barely fit our entire team at once. There was a set menu. There was soup followed by a main course. Every player on every team ate the same meal. Food was served, players ate. We ate 3 meals a day. Local hotels in European cities tend to be less expensive than American brand hotels because they lack the amenities. They're a small room in which to sleep with even smaller private bathrooms, no HBO, no pool, single beds. Players stayed 2, 3, or 4 to a room depending on what the hotel offered and had available. The lack of frills, however, cut costs. We drove Thursday after school, played 2 games on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday before driving home. Each team played a morning game and an afternoon game. A 10 a.m. game meant breakfast at 7:30. We met at 7 to walk to the cafe. Rather than walk back to the hotel, players usually preferred to go directly to the gym and watch other games. The 10 a.m. game ended at 11:15, which meant a 12 o'clock lunch. Players showered. We walked back to the cafe as a team. After lunch around 12:30, we walked back to the hotel. They had an hour or 2 to meet before we walked back for the afternoon game. Not much downtime to fill. Mostly guys played video games on their phones between games. At night, we went to candy, blah, 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 blah. The differences are largely culture and beyond basketball. We want youth basketball to be less expensive, but there are some reasons basketball is less expensive. Teams drive buses rather than fly. Teams eat at small cafes with preset meals rather than going to various chain restaurants or catering meals. Parents rarely attend the games despite free admission. Gyms are affiliated with competing clubs and are charged at the normal rate, whatever the university or local government charges the sports club to use facilities. Our tournament was in a professional team's practice gym. There was 1 row of metal chairs opposite the benches for fans, parents, and others attending. Nobody rents out convention centers or football stadiums to put down dozens of new courts. The purpose is the competition, not to put on a show for players or college coaches. AAU grew largely as a way to showcase players to college coaches. Consequently, it developed as a business to serve the college coaches and other scouts, not the players and parents. Youth, pre-high school, tournaments should differ, as there are no college coaches to serve. But these events tend to mimic the high school events rather than attempting to provide the best possible service for the players and parents. Our players did not spend a lot of money because costs were relatively low. But everyone made some money. The restaurant was paid, the hotel was paid, the organizer was paid, the rest were paid. One difference was the operators did not try to make their entire annual income through a single event. Like most youth coaches, they had other jobs and operated the tournament as a side business or hobby. When our club hosted, the youth director planned and directed the event as part of his full-time job with the club. He was not paid extra, nor did he receive a bonus if the event increased revenue. The goal was to provide a good event for all the clubs, not to maximize profit or fund our club by hosting events. The events rotated amongst participating clubs because while it was nice to host and have home court advantage, it was extra work to organize the event, the meals, the hotels, and more, not to mention rescheduling the normal weekend activities in the gym. The events were for the players, not for the revenue or exposure, although most games were streamed on YouTube for free. We do not need to play tournaments in NFL stadiums or convention centers. We do not need to center the college coaches who spend tens of thousands of dollars attending various showcase tournaments. We can use local recreation centers and high schools. We can cut costs and work with the other clubs to rotate hosting rather than embarking on entrepreneurial dreams to create entire careers out of running youth tournaments. This goes back to what I said at the beginning. Here's the important part. Then we'll pause, take some talkbacks and calls. But ultimately, these decisions are driven by the parents who pay for the tournaments one way or another. When parents decide they do not need to travel or play in the newest, fanciest gyms or play in weekly tournaments, changes will occur. Currently, people just want to complain about costs but not change their behaviors. Flying across the country, staying in large brand-name hotels, and eating at fast casual restaurants is expensive. We can change some behaviors to reduce costs, but we lack the simple hotels, prefix meals, simple facility rates, club cooperation, and more that keep costs down throughout most of Europe. The cost of youth sports is problematic, but much is a byproduct of our society and culture, not unique to sports. It's up to us, the parents. Do we have the stomach? A couple of calls and texts on this, and we'll talk Wolves.
Justin Guard in for Barreiro on the Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
This report.
Muscle car party of the year. It's coming to the Minnesota State Fairgrounds July 17th through the 19th, the Street Machine Nationals. And you can be there. You can enter now for your chance to win a family 4-pack of tickets. Go to KFAN.com, keyword contests, KFAN.com, keyword contests.
Hey, Guardsy, Dan from Rochester. U Sports might show up in Dr. Dan's inbox this week. I think the issue with U Sports is the travel. I did U17 girls AAU basketball, and there was a time where we went to the Dells, stopped in Toma, obviously, beautiful Toma this time of year, traveled to the Dells to play 2 Rochester teams and a team from Bloomington. Bit ridiculous.
Appreciate it, Dan. Welcome back. Cake Show edition of Bumper to Bumper. We're trying to tackle or at least explore the youth sports problem in the United States of America. A lot of people talking about the soccer setup in reaction to the United States losing to Belgium last night 4-1. But the pay-for-play model immediately makes it difficult for would-be high-level athletes to actually succeed, that you've got to have money. And I got a text about it earlier today when I mentioned I was going to talk about it. You know, kids are 6, 7 years old, 8 years old, 9 years old. Pick your age wherever. And the second they show any aptitude for it or want to up the ante a little bit and play a little bit more, it's bang, here's $4,000 or $5,000 for the year. Like that's hard to do. It is. Even if you're really good and you're dedicated, and I've got 52 jobs. Where do you think most of my money goes? It goes to kids sports stuff. I've got 3 of them. They all want to play. Like I'm right here in the thick of it with you. But the travel part of it is a really interesting component. And we played the coach's interview from the hockey tournament in Edmonton. And how old, for people that missed it, did you believe me when I told you it was for a tournament of 9 and 10-year-olds?
Seemed like a pretty professional.
9 and 10 years old.
Yeah.
All right. And I know some of the kids that played in the tournament. All right. They play with my son, who's a 9-year-old. And I'm not criticizing them or ripping them. It's not about them, because kids want to play. You ask the kid, what do you want to do? Yeah, I want to go. I want to play. In fact, one of the kids who was interviewed at 9 referenced that he had to talk his dad into letting him go play. And thankfully for him, he had mom on his side so he could go out and achieve a dream that he'd been dreaming about since he was 4 years old. That's what the kid said. And I'm not making that up. I know I make things up. Sometimes I'm not making that up. But we've just kind of lost the plot on the travel thing. And you can take it, like I'm talking hockey now. We were talking soccer. The story that I just read was basketball. The travel thing is where I think we definitely have lost the plot. Dan, the talkbacker, just mentioned that they went to the Dells. I was just at Toma, by the way, drove through Toma.
Is it lovely this time of year?
It's pretty nice. Yeah, okay. It's pretty nice. Kids wanted Culver's. What else? And so
when in Rome.
We stopped at the Toma Culver's. There's not the Long John Silver's A&W combo that Dan always talks about. That's been long gone. That was on the other side of the interstate. But, yeah, you go and you travel to the Dells and you play a couple of teams from Rochester. Or locally, travel basketball here in the cities. You go to Rochester, Brainerd, Minnetonka's playing Chanhassen. Like, that's one away tournament, right? But the AAU stuff, the club soccer, the club lacrosse, the AAA hockey, you're going all over the place. And especially with some of these, it's like, does a Minnesota hockey team need to leave the state to go play? We are the state of hockey, right? Like, are we really in search of more competition? Now,
do we have to cross the blue line that surrounds our state?
Right.
Sorry.
Probably not.
No, I don't think so.
But now, this team that went to play in Canada, like, that's fine. We're talking about one team, right? And that team's obviously very good. Okay? But there's so many other teams that are doing the same thing. Maybe not to that extreme. But Brandon and I talked about it. There's teams right now with 9, 10, 11-year-olds. They're playing in Sweden. Why? Now, to come back to that, and I actually do get this a little bit, if you have the means, which, again, not cheap to go to Sweden, I think, any time of the year, especially out of a Delta hub like MSP. It's probably pretty expensive. It's family time. We make it a family trip. It's memories we have together. I'm all for that. I get all of that. But I also just have to look and go, why is the fourth team, if you've got an AAU team, and it's the guys that are high level, the high major kids, okay? Yeah, send them to Louisville. Send them to Atlanta. Send them to Vegas. Okay? Second team. Okay. Yeah, maybe. I could see that. Maybe send them to Chicago, send them to Madison, do a little travel. It's fun. But as you get younger and younger, and you've got like 11-year-olds going to Boston to play basketball in May, like, what the hell are we doing? What the hell are we doing? And every time I sit around a parent table, because we all talk about this. I don't know how other people's lives work, but this is my life, okay? I sit at parent parties revolved around my kids' sports teams. All my friends now are parents of, kids that go to school together, and they all just talk about where they're going, what they're doing, how much it costs, and how much they hate it. And I'm kind of sitting there going like, oh, why are we all doing this thing? Like, we're all in the same place. We got rinks right here. We got lacrosse fields right here. We got gyms right here. What are we doing? The travel part of it, I think, is the biggest thing that we could easily rectify. And I get it. Like, I traveled all over the country playing tennis. All over. Florida, California, Arizona, Washington, D.C. We went to Hawaii for a thing. Like, I did that, but it wasn't until I was like 14, 15, 16, 17. Kalamazoo, Michigan. Yeah, that's where the college coaches are. But to be crossing the country and leaving the country when they're not even in middle school yet? I mean, what are we doing here? What am I doing with the text, Brett? Is there another talkback we can play? Do you have anything else we can play on the talkback?
There's a few here. I think this one gets cut off, but he has a good point.
I want to wrap this up as well, because I want to get back to some other stuff. I appreciate all the texts. I'll try to grab a few. Go ahead.
Garza, here's feedback on your pay to play. I think you're spot on. And I would further add the high school varsity requirements need club sports to fuel that. And if you peel the onion back even further, the top of the tree is something we call NIL. So all of this lunatic fringe youth sports is driven by the hope and the dream that
30 seconds is 30 seconds.
It's driven, but he's right.
Yeah.
And because I've gotten some texts about this as well, I'm putting most of the onus on the parents that at some point we have to stand up for ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm already kind of doing that with a couple of things. Like, I don't need to do this. We don't need to do that. Okay. Probably shouldn't have done it in the first place. I get why I thought so, but it's all kind of trial and error. And again, you want your kids to have the best experience. You want them to improve. You want them to work hard. You want them to be dependable for their team, accountable to their team, all the things that you learn. But this text, I think, kind of hits on some of it from where this thing also goes. JG, I'm a few years older than Dan B. When my daughters were 11 and 14, we decided to go on a driving vacation to Yellowstone right after school was out in June for almost 2 weeks. When we told their respective soccer coaches about the vacation, I thought that they would lose their minds. They both emphasized that the girls would fall behind the other girls. It would be bad for their teams, and heaven forbid they would each miss the tournament. I told each coach their teams would be okay. It would give other girls more opportunity to play. We went on similar vacations the next few years. It didn't seem to affect their development. Each played a varsity sport in high school. The oldest ran cross country. The youngest played basketball. The parents are over involved, and kids are great. This from the Western Burbs. There's a coaching responsibility too, because whether it's for the club or whether it's for the high school, every coach says that they want multi-sport athletes, they want well-rounded athletes, they want balanced athletes and people on their team. I'm going to try to avoid generalities again. How many actually really live that and believe it? Or how many say that at the parent meeting, and then when you say, hey, by the way, we're going to have to miss summer hockey tonight because we've got baseball, what's the friction level there? You know what I mean? Like, there's that too, because, or the high school coach saying, I need them at summer workouts. The expectation is that they're there. Well, if you want well-balanced kids and well-balanced athletes, they might not be able to be there at all times. And so there's some responsibility there, because the specialization thing, like, that's the other thing. We haven't even touched on this. As a buddy of mine who's an orthopedic surgeon will tell you, one of the number one things he sees in his office right now are overuse injuries with kids. Well, how does that happen? They're playing 12 months out of the year the same sport over and over and over again. So the orthopedics are telling us this is not great when they're 9, 10, 11, 12. You know, the kids themselves, I think, tell us in different ways that it's not great. Like, there just has to be, everybody's got to give a little bit, I guess, is the moral of the story. Oh, the orthopedic surgeon just texted me. I wonder if it's about this. So anyway, I appreciate everybody's feedback. I'll read more texts on this as we go. We'll keep the talkbacks going as well. I don't know if we solved anything, but I wanted to at least get it out there for parents that if you're struggling with this, the pay-for-play stuff, the club stuff, the nonstop nature of it, that you're trying to schedule a couple of weekends at the cabin, but you can't because you've got kids that have sports all summer long, and they may or may not be in town. When I say in town, in the Twin Cities, like, you're not alone. If you're sitting there at the team party or at the team dinner that you didn't want to be at because you already spent $1,000 to get to the tournament and stay at the tournament, and you didn't want to spend another $250 because you had to bring the entire family of 5 with you, and now you've got to go to some brewery in a suburb of a town you didn't want to be in, and you don't want to be the only one because your son or daughter wants to go. Like, you have a friend in me. You have an ally in me. It's okay to pull it back a little bit. It's okay to think about it a bit. All of our kids want to play. They all want to participate. They all want to be good. It's okay to pull it back just a little bit, or at least pause and think about, do I really need to bring my 9-year-old out of the state of hockey, out of the country of hockey, the reigning gold medal hockey country, to go play a tournament on 4th of July weekend? Some Wolves discussion when we come back.
In for Barreiro, this is Justin Guard on The Fan.
If you want to chime in what's happening in your favorite KFAN shows, well, you can. It's really easy. You can make your voice heard on the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line. Just let us know what you have to say by texting your message to 64686. That's 64686. Standard text message and data rates apply.
Hey, it's Tyler from Elgin. I like the conversation topic. Great points made. I had 3 boys that were in traveling baseball and hockey. Traveled all across the state and the surrounding states, and it would usually cost, I don't know, anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a year. But I would do it all over again because I had just as much fun as they did watching.
Yeah, I get that. I get it. My favorite thing is to just watch them play. Watch them practice, watch them play, watch them compete, watch them be idiots with their buddies. It's the best. And the family memories, all of it. I totally get all of it. 2 last things on this, and then we'll talk Wolves here for a second. Maybe a little bit of a LeBron update from Brian Windy from ESPN. One of the things I'm grateful for, I talked about it at the top of this whole conversation that started an hour ago, is it's very easy to generalize that everybody that's in the youth sports world is only in it for the money and they're in it for the wrong reasons and they're all predatory and you've just got to watch your back at all times. I don't think that's true. I know it's not true because we're part of a couple that are just phenomenal, just extra hockey, extra whatever it is, that have just been tremendous, that aren't insane, that aren't crazy, that, from my opinion, as a guy who can't skate and never heard of lacrosse, they're being coached the right way. They're being coached how, if I was their coach, that's how I would want my kid to be coached. I would love to be coached the way that they are. Like, there are so many great programs out there. And so I said that at the top as a disclaimer. It gets very easy and convenient to just say everything sucks, everybody's bad, AAU bad, this good. That's not the case. It's completely beneficial, or it can be completely beneficial, and there's more good people than there are bad people and bad programs. There's that. The last thing I'll say on it, the one thing I am militant about, and I think we all should be, is kids are playing too many games at young ages in their sports. Too many games in a weekend, too many games in a season, and not spending enough time practicing. And to bring it to basketball, the basketball part of it, one of the reasons I think why the most valuable player in the NBA has not been from America the last however many years, we could go down the list, is how some of these players were brought up in the game. Jokic, Giannis, SGA, go down the list. Like, they don't play 50 games in a season when they're little. They practice, and they practice, and they practice the fundamentals. When I'm trying to learn about the soccer stuff, it seems like that's part of the bit overseas. It's a lot of training. I mean, first of all, you can't play, well, I guess you can when you're little, a bunch of soccer games over the weekend. But they train more than they play, right? Is that fair to say, Brett Blakemore, especially as they get older?
That's my understanding.
It's much more training than there are games. And so that's the one thought I am militant about when I'm trying to figure out what my kids should be doing. What's the practice to game ratio? Because at some point they do have to practice. They have to practice the fundamentals, the skills, the mind of the game, all of that, and then go put it into play. And I think games should be special. Games are the reward for all the practice. And there should be more stakes on the games as opposed to, well, we lost, we got a 50-minute break, and then we're going to go out and play again. Like, that to me doesn't teach the value of winning and losing very well. It's just, yeah, we've got however many games. And so that's the one thing I am very, very cognizant of that I would encourage other people to, is like, it's no accident that some of the best fundamental basketball players we have in the NBA right now didn't grow up here. And the ones that can really think the game and see it on a high level, like, they learned it elsewhere in a different setup than we have here. So just food for thought. Speaking of basketball, the latest LeBron James bit, I think you can call this kind of news, or at least a furthering of the story, Brett. Brian Windhorst on, ESPN Cleveland, I believe, which is where he's from. He's from Ohio. if you ask me, are the vibes pointing towards Cleveland? Yeah, the vibes are pointing towards Cleveland. We talked a lot of LeBron yesterday. We had Johnny Athletic on for his weekly appearance. Spent a ton of time talking about the Rich Paul Whiteboard episode of his podcast with Max Kellerman, where he outlined all the different permutations and options for LeBron, what made sense here, what made sense there, why this was good, why this would be a good fit. The bottom line is LeBron is a fit on whatever team he wants to join. Even at 41 years old, entering season 24, especially an established team that already has a bunch of established players. And Cleveland obviously has been good for the last few years. They've got some established stars. They were a playoff team again this year, and he would slide in and probably fit really well with that squad. And for the Minnesota part of it, that I think we need to focus on a little bit, because it is going to be a gut punch if he doesn't come here. Even though we've all done the disclaimers and gotten in front of it and said it's like a 7% chance that he's actually going to bring his talents to the Twin Cities, more specifically Minneapolis, and play at Target Center next year. Yeah, he would be a perfect fit basketball-wise for what the Wolves are doing here. Yes, they need a power forward. They need better basketball IQ. They need another ball handler. They need another option. What LeBron could bring, it just, you look at all his options, and basketball-wise, the Wolves are right there at the top. If it was just a pure basketball decision, they'd probably be top 3 favorite to land him. We know there's a lot more that goes into it, obviously. But this whole thing about the Wolves moving forward, yes, they need a power forward for this year. If they're going to be a contender this year, they probably need another body there. They need a power forward. I don't know how they're going to get one if it's not LeBron. They don't really have a bunch of money. I'm not in love, depending on who it is, with getting the money from the other guy they got in the LaMelo Ball trade and packaging TJ Shannon to go get a $15 million player. I'm not in love with that. I like TJ Shannon. I'd like to keep him around for a little bit. So I don't know who the answer would be. But for me, I guess what I'm saying is I'm cool with this being the Timberwolves' quote-unquote gap year if they need to take a gap year. Because to me, the LaMelo play has always been a play for the next timeline of the Anthony Edwards experience here with the Timberwolves. We have to remember he's 24 years old. It feels like he's been around here forever because they've had great seasons pretty much every year that he's been here after his rookie year. They've made the playoffs. They made the playoffs 5 years in a row. Hasn't happened a whole lot around here. And we've talked about this a little bit, and I know others have talked about it as well. The dual timeline, the dual tracks that the Wolves have been on here. When they made the Rudy Gobert trade 4 years ago, now it was official 4 years ago yesterday. The whole theory behind that was we want Anthony Edwards to play in as many meaningful games, as many playoff games as he possibly can at a young age, because that will accelerate his growth, his timeline, his development. I would say it's a pretty resounding success, given that they won 5 playoff series the last 3 years, went to the Western Conference Finals twice. Off the top of my head, he eliminated LeBron, Luka, Jokic twice, even though he wasn't really a part of this last series. Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, even though he wasn't a part of that series. Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green. Like, he took a lot of big names out of the playoffs the last few years and, probably accelerated his developmental timeline faster than maybe we even thought. But as they were doing that and trying to make deep runs and trying to win a title, and maybe for the rest of our lives, the best chance that they ever had to win a title was 2 years ago in 2024, after they beat Denver and hosted Luka and Kyrie, had home court advantage in the Western Conference Finals. We may look back on that. I may look back on that when I'm Dan's age, hopefully still here talking to you, Brett, saying 2024 was the year to do it. They had home court advantage against an okay Mavs team that had Luka, Kyrie, and then a bunch of guys that just dunked on us the whole time. And they couldn't quite get it there. That was the first championship window, that group, 24 to what we just passed through now in 2026. But as they were doing that, they were also quietly building this future timeline for Anthony Edwards. That include Jaden McDaniels, as the guy who's basically the same age, was the same draft class. At the time included Naz Reid, who came in the year before, basically the same age. And then the pieces that they were going to put. As of 2 weeks ago, that was the new trio. It was Ant, it was Jaden, it was Nas. They've been quietly building towards this second timeline. And that second timeline, the peak is not going to be this year for that timeline. And I'm not saying they have it in perpetuity, that we can just think about this window that's going to be open for 5 or 6 years, because we all know that's not how sports works. That's not how the NBA works. Brett, how many times have I told you and ranted here that you never know when your window is going to close? The first championship window with Anthony Edwards is probably closed. Now, if LeBron comes here, it's probably open again. Okay, but the first window is closed. Now it's about the second one. And that's what I think LaMelo Ball represents, as a guy who, again, was in that draft class, was the third pick, did not have the luxury that Anthony had, with pretty good infrastructure, pretty good vets, and a pretty good coach and system around him to make deep runs in the playoffs. Charlotte was dreadful his first handful of years. This year, they got really good. And LaMelo was a big reason for it. They haven't had the playoff stuff. They had the play-in stuff. Wasn't good. But it was a good team this year. And they've got a good young core, and they chose to go a different direction and lean into, I think, Con Knippel's timeline and some other guys. But the LaMelo play is for the second timeline. That's Ant. That's LaMelo. That's Jaden. That's Ayo Dosunmu, who's also, I think, 26. TJ Shannon might be a part of that. And then Johan Berenger, the other part of the Cat Randall trade. The 20-year-old, I think he is now, French center, who at some point is going to take over for Rudy Gobert. All of those guys are 26 years or younger. That's your timeline for the next 2, 3, 4 years. First title window, probably done. If there's no LeBron coming this year, which, again, odds are not coming, depending on what they do at the power forward spot, that window's probably closed. But you have to position yourself the best way for the next one, and I think that's what these moves are about. And it could be quicker than you think. Because one thing we've learned about the Giannis trade, the Jaylen Brown trade, all these moves for big stars this offseason, one reason why the return haven't been very good for these guys, or as good as we thought, because the second apron stuff is real, and the second apron stuff is starting to affect teams. And we're going to see a lot of movement, I think, because teams don't want to be in the second apron. You want to be in there when you're making a big run. You have a team built for a title. That's when you push. Obviously, the Warriors have kind of done that the last few years. They've had one of the most expensive rosters, maybe the most expensive. They're, I think, looking to move off of some money. We've already seen the Knicks move off of some money. Mitchell Robinson, they don't want to be in the second apron. He's a guy that's going to have to go. Well, that does make their team worse. They're keeping their core, but you need different guys. You need depth. You need a lot of players. The Knicks don't want to be in the second apron. Guys are moving. The Celtics moved Jaylen Brown. If you read more into it, there was a lot going on, obviously, behind the scenes with the thing and the Tatum stuff. He was floated for Giannis. He got mad about that. He's now in an analytics battle with everybody in that front office. But part of the reason why Jaylen Brown is on the move is because we could look up his contract. He's about to make like $60 million. And Jason Tatum makes about the same money. He might even make more. They moved him in part because of the second apron stuff. Now they've got another guy who's high priced, Paul George, who at some point they'll probably shift off of him as well. But the Supermax contract guys are becoming a problem. And they're becoming more difficult to keep. And you really only have room for one of them. When Carl signed his Supermax, Carl Anthony Towns, it was right before the second apron stuff popped in. Well, you have Anthony Edwards come in. You know eventually he's going to be a Supermax guy, probably as soon as a year from now, when he presumably plays enough games to be All-NBA. That kicks in the Supermax. He can sign it and make a boatload of money. It was going to be really hard to keep Anthony and Carl and build an actual team around it. So we're going to see other guys fall off these contending teams, the Oklahoma Cities, the San Antonio Spurs, the Knicks, we've already seen it. Go down the list. Celtics, we just saw it again. It's harder and harder to keep these guys. And so you need a lot of good players on a lot of good contracts. LaMelo's on a pretty good contract. He's not Supermax guy yet. Jaden, outstanding contract. You could probably get away. I think Jaden makes $25 million. I think it was 5 years, $25 million, something like that. he's eligible for an extension this year. There's speculation. I heard Dane Moore talk about it, say he's eligible for an extension. Why not add 2 more years at $40 million each on the back end? People are going to say that's crazy money. Not really. The way the salary cap's going, the percentage cap it's going to be, like, you want a bunch of different guys. That's why Nas was valuable. That's why Julius Randle, as much as people didn't like how it ended here, me included, he was on a very reasonable contract for him when they re-signed him. And it was a contract that was eventually tradable, even though they had to move on and just get really nothing in return. But you need a lot of guys. If the Spurs, the Thunder, the Knicks have taught us anything, you need a lot of good players on really reasonable contracts to be good. Wild are kind of going through the same thing, right? You've got Kirill, you're going to have Quinn Hughes, they hope. But why are they really good? Boldy looks pretty damn good, right? On his contract. Faber looks really good, right? He's locked in. Was it 8 years, $8 million?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of good contracts on the Wild. That's why they've been able to keep their core together. And even then, with those good contracts, they're kind of out of money already. And they need to move some stuff around to bring other people in. So that's kind of the point, is this LaMelo Ball thing. We have no idea what type of contender they'll be next year. They'll probably be, maybe where they were this year, like a 5 or a 6 seed. I don't know. I happen to think it's going to work, especially if LaMelo is healthy. They're going to be an exciting team. They're going to be fun. They're going to score a lot. They've got to work on some defensive stuff, obviously, with LaMelo, but with Ant, with Jaden, and with Rudy, they should be able to work around all of that. You got to best position yourself with a bunch of good dudes when this second apron stuff starts to hit, because it's starting to hit. It hit the Wolves hardest first because they had to make a move with Cat or Rudy. They trade Cat because he's worth more. They get more than they probably would have gotten for Rudy. As much as I hated to see Cat go, I understand it. It sucked to watch him win a title in New York, and we can't get to the Western Conference Finals, and he played really well. But this LaMelo thing, it's not just for 26, 27. It's for 28, 29. When Berenger comes in for Rudy, when Ayo's still here, when Jaden's in his prime, continuing to add more, and, of course, Anthony Edwards. So that's my sermon about the Wolves bit. If LeBron comes, that's great. The championship window is open. It's wide open, and they'd probably be one of the top 4 favorites. They'd certainly be a top 3 team in the West, I would imagine, and I'd love to see that series with San Antonio or Oklahoma City. Top 5, what do we got?
Tom Brady said something surpassed his Super Bowl comeback. I'll tell you what game it is.
Justin Guard in for Barreiro on the Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by Gens Ryan.